Okay, so this is the SugarU live webinar, Strengthening Security, your guide to teams and roles in Sugar. Even though the title doesn't say anything about users, we will be talking about them because they are a part of teams and they're a part of roles. Without them, you can't have a team or a role. So we will be discussing information about about users also. I've added into chat a handout, and it is totally up to you if you want to use it or not. It is going to be not only to help you track the information as we go through this particular webinar, but also as a handout to you or a job aid, if you will, after class of the material that we covered. So you won't have to keep all those detailed notes, even though after class we do load the recording and the slide deck into Sugar Club. So you'll have both of those available too if you need to reference any of the material. I'm going to give you a little heads up. I have some QR codes at the end of the presentation. So just make sure you have your phone ready, or you can always go to the slides afterwards and pull up any of the information, but they're just additional resources that it's easier for you to actually access. Okay, hold on one second. Okay. All right, just want to raise a hands if my audio is doing okay. I'm getting a little message from Zoom saying they're having issues. All right, perfect. Thank you. Sometimes Zoom's right, sometimes he's not. I say he's a he. He may not be a he. Okay, so, let me introduce myself. I'm Andrea Ayers. I've been with Sugar for 15 years, going to my 16th year. I'm a senior product trainer, instructional designer. I am in SugarU, which is just the training department inside of Sugar CRM. And the topic today is teams and users. So we're going to talk about just some key concepts at a very high level. What's a user, what's a team, what's a goal, what's a role. And then we're going to dive deep into teams. Not specifically, we're going to talk about the 3 types of teams that are in the system, how to manage teams, and then we're going to demonstrate creating teams. And we're going to use those teams later in another demo I'll show you, or discussion at the end of the session. Then we're going to create roles is the next session. And we're going to talk about putting it all together with teams. How do teams and roles work together? We're going to talk about role-based views and list values, and then we're going to demonstrate roles. And what's not on this agenda, but I also slipped in team-based permissions at the end if we have time. If not, I have another QR code for you to access to get more information about that. There's a great article out on our website, the support website for knowledge articles, or I think they're called help articles now, that's specifically for team-based permissions that I'm going to get you access to. Okay. All right, so just high level here, we're just talking about users, teams, and roles. So first of all, let me get a quick raise hand question here, okay? How many of you have entered teams into Sugar before? Raise your hand. You've created a team. Whether it was successful or not, you created one. Okay, a little less than half. All right, that's good. Okay, so for you and the rest of you, we're going to talk about how what a user is, or what Sugar thinks a user is. And then we're going to put those users into groups, which are teams. And then we're going to say what those users can do in the system, which is a role. And then team-based permissions, okay? So, excuse me. So a user is identified out of all the people in your organization, those are the ones that are going to be using Sugar, right? Now, you may have employees that are in your organization that are not going to be using Sugar, and we actually call those people in Sugar employees, okay? A user is an employee, but not all employees are users, okay? A little logic from college there. And that they have to be identified in the system in order to get access. And in order to get access, they have to have a username and password. And whether you are a on-site customer, meaning you're hosting your instance of Sugar yourself or through some other service, or you're on the cloud with us, you will have to create a user, whether that's through Sugar Identity or directly in the user management section, in order for the next concept to be done, which is a team. So 2 teams are going to be created every time you create a user, and we'll discuss that in just a minute. But the user has to be created before you before you can see them in the team and before you can add them into other teams. Users also can be assigned records and they can set their own preferences. Now, a preference is not, I'm going to change my job title. I'm now the CEO of the company and I don't report to anybody and I'm going to remove things or add things. There's certain things that they can set as a preference, like their date and time, the modules they want to display in the order they want to display them, any of their personal information. That's a preference, okay? Anything that is going to determine their access in the system, like who they report to, for example, they will not be able to change, okay? So that's high level, that's what a user is. A team is just grouping those users together, okay? So teams, this is what a team is, and this is what it does, okay? So every record in Sugar has a team field. The only exception to that is if you create a module and module builder, like a whole new module, just like if it were accounts, right? Whole new module that is new and something you want to create in Sugar. There is a option on the very first step when you create that module if it is going to have teams or not. Okay. I've only had one customer in my entire time with Sugar that did not want that. Okay. That I know of personally. But most people, yeah, I want a team because it needs to have some kind of security on these records, right? So maybe you don't want just everybody editing or viewing even the record. So if a user is a member of the same team that is linked to that record, like let's say the team is the West Coast sales team. Okay, so if Bob is a member of the West Coast sales team and he wants to look at a record that's assigned to the West Coast sales team, he will be able to see it. Now, the opposite is also true. If he tries to look at a record that's only assigned to the East Coast sales team, he will not be able to see it because he's not in that team. Okay? So it's visibility, not what they can do in that record, just if they can see it or not see it, right? And when I mean not see it or see it, it could be a role will actually let you view a record um, only if you own it, but a team is going to be more like, can I even see it in the list view? Like I'm going to go in there and just do a search before I create a new record. And I do a search for my ABC company in the accounts module. There isn't one. So then I'm going to create one, right? That's normal practice. But if someone has already had ABC in there and they only gave it to a certain team, and that person that's doing the searching and the creating is not part of that team, you could have duplicates. So you have to think about what people's access should be. Maybe they should be able to see it, but that doesn't mean that they should be able to edit it or delete it, right? So that's roles. Teams are just, can they see the record? Can they not see it? Okay. Then roles. So roles are going to define the actions or the operations that a person can do, or excuse me, not a person, a user can do within a module. So an operation is like the delete. Can they delete the record? Can they edit the record? You may say only the person assigned to the record can edit it. Okay, that's fine. We can set that up that way. Only the owner can delete it, or nobody can delete it that's in this role. Okay. And this is not a blanket, everybody, all users out there. This is for all of them. I'm creating one role and it's all going to be for everybody. It's only for the individuals you add into that role. So you can have multiple roles out there for different levels. Most of the time, you do roles by job duty or task, right? I do it. I talk about it as a job title. So everybody at this level in the hierarchy map, right? They're going to be able to do these things. And the next level up, they may be able to do a little bit more or see a little bit more or change a little bit more fields than the one beneath them. And then as you go up, you may get more or less depending on how your organization is set up. One user can belong to multiple roles. Okay. The most restrictive aspect of each role is going to prevail. Okay. And what I mean by that is that, let's say one role says you can edit an account, and that same user is in another role that says you cannot edit an account. No one in that role could. So what Sugar's going to do is combine all those roles into one access control page, and that page is then going to be, because the most restrictive prevails, that they won't be able to edit an account. Okay, because one of the roles they're in restricts it, excuse me. Okay, and like I said before, the role is only going to take effect for the people or the users that are in that particular role. You may have lots and lots of fancy roles out there. If nobody's in those roles, then they will not take effect on anybody. Okay, one more thing I'm going to say about roles right now is this. Out of the box, when you start using Sugar, and you just create a user and you just give them their username and password and they log on, they could do this. Okay, this is, and I just brace yourself here. They could go in, if you don't put them in a role, and delete every single record you have in the system. They can also export everything out. They can do mass update. Mass update means you can select multiple records in a list view and change any of the fields that have been marked available for mass update, meaning you can change a whole bunch of records at one time, particular fields that you selected. Okay, that's pretty scary. So that's why we have roles. We don't want users to go in there and delete a bunch of stuff that they shouldn't be deleting, right? For example, when I set up a system for someone, I always recommend, hey, it's a good idea for if you're going to be setting up tasks for people to do in Sugar BPM, and you don't want them to just delete that task, just make sure that they're in a role that says they can't delete task. Okay. Even if they own it, they shouldn't be able to delete it because it has a status. Just like a call and a meeting, they all have statuses, even leads and cases. So I don't let people delete records if they shouldn't be deleting records. Okay. Okay, a question in chat. One user can be on multiple teams, correct? Am I correct that a role is the most restricted permission, but teams is inclusive of all records that should be seen by any of their teams? So in essence, the least restricted. Ooh, okay, that's a lot of words for me. Okay, so yes, one user can be part of multiple teams. Roles is the most restrictive of each. It looks like a little spreadsheet. So I call it each little cell. It's going to look at all those cells for all the roles, and then it's going to give you the most restrictive one. And teams, I would say it would be hmm, more inclusive. It just depends how many. If you put every record in Sugar in the what we call global team, which is everybody's a part of the global team, instantly as soon as they're created in the system, then yes, I would say that's very inclusive. And that would be that they could see all the records. Now, it doesn't mean they can do stuff in it, but it just means this is all the records you can see. You may not have any access to do anything because you're also in a role that restricts that, but visually, yes, you can see those records, maybe not be able to do stuff. Okay, so good question. Hopefully I answered that all the way. Okay, so let's kind of put this together. So if a salesperson is a user, okay, so right away we know if they're a user, they have a log on, right? So they can log on to Sugar. So that's pretty important. They can be assigned records, they can change their preferences, etc. Okay, so that just saying that they are a user in the system, I know that they can log on. Okay. And they belong to the East team and the sales role. So let me say one thing about teams here. Every time you click save on a new user, they're part of two teams instantly. Okay. There's a team out there called Global, and it's there from the very beginning, from the very first user, which is the admin of the system. And every time you add a new user, that person gets added into Global, added. Okay. We'll talk more about Global in a little bit. And they're part of what's called a private team, which is a little deceptive because it's not necessarily that nobody else can see it. The admin can always see all teams out there, but what it means is them, that user, their boss, their boss, and their boss up the chain of command. Okay, not their equals, but up the hierarchy. Okay, so there's nothing that user can put into the system that another person can't see. The only thing that won't apply to is the one at the very, very top of the hierarchy. Okay, so the one that's, let's say, sales VP, that person, if they're the highest person in the hierarchy that's a user, then they won't have someone in the report to field, and their private team truly will just be themselves. Okay, so can a sales rep, if they're a user, see a particular opportunity? Well, if they're in the East team, yes, or any of the other teams, right? You may have created a umbrella sales team. You may have created the um, East team in um, Boston, and it may be very specific to that particular city. Then that is, or it could be based on a particular region. So any other team that they're in, if that opportunity is in it, in that particular team, then they'll be able to see it. Can they edit an opportunity? Now, in this sales role, we don't know what's in the sales role, but if it allows editing for opportunities, specifically opportunities, then yes, they can edit it. If that role says no, then they won't see the edit button. Okay. They won't even be able to look at edit. They could do some of the other operations possibly, but not that one. Okay. Whether they own it or not, it just depends on how that role is set up. Okay. So that's kind of how they all work together. So let's talk about, I've had a few more people join, so I'm going to add that fill in the blank handout one more time. And if you, as we go through, I'm going to give you answers after class, by the way, so you can fill it all in later if you want to. So let's talk a little bit deeper dive into team management. Now, I'm going to demo how to create a team a little bit, but this is more other things that have come up about teams that I've been asked, or that I've heard about being asked, or I've seen on Club, or I've seen articles written that are a little bit deeper dive, right, into team management. So how teams and roles work together is that roles define what a user can do, teams define the records the users can access, and they combine to create a robust security module for non-admin users. And I say non-admin because admins are not affected by roles or teams. Right? They can see all records, they can do all operations. They are a true super user in the system. Okay. Can you have more than one admin? Yes. Do I recommend having a lot? No, right? It's like too many cooks in the kitchen kind of concept. So be careful about having too many people as admins. If you do, you're going to have to document more than if it were just you. Okay, I would say. Okay, teams are useful to control record level visibility, obviously, because that's the definition. So who can see the record or not see the record. Enable collaboration across specific users, right? Sometimes you may want to create a team specifically just to see a report. That's it. You're not going to use it on any other record but reports. I want the executive team to see these reports, and I want the entire sales team to see these reports, not necessarily the support team, right? Just the sales team. So you may want to organize your teams based on some kind of collaboration. Also, you may want to do it by department. You may want to do it geographically or some other custom grouping that you have. Okay. There's always other groupings that people come up with and specific to your industry and your organization. So just conceptually, if you do a regional sales team, so let's say that all these icons are different records, account records in the West Coast sales team. So they're only going to be able to see their records that are in that team. And the East Coast team is only going to be able to see their records, right? They're different. But I may have another team called managers, okay? Sales managers or regional sales managers. And we want them to be able to see all the records, okay? So one record can have one or more records on it. Okay. Managers also will be a part of any team that their subordinates are in already. Okay. But here is another perk to adding more than one team on a record. If I want to run a report and I want to say, I want to see all of the records with this team, then it's a way to kind of filter those records out. I want to see everything that's the West Coast sales team, then I can pull all those that are assigned to that particular team. Even though there may be three other teams on that particular record, it's going to still filter that record in. Okay. All right, so let's talk about global, standard, and private teams. So global team is a team that's created by the system, and it is used for so much stuff on the background that we don't allow you to delete it. It looks like you can. It looks like you can click on it and click in the list view and click delete, but it's going to give you a message that it can't. Okay. It doesn't disable it from the user, but it will give them a message to say you can't delete it after they try it. Okay. Just so you know, it is set now. Didn't used to be this way, but it is set now as the default team when a new user is created. So there's a field called default team. That's not super complicated. We're not trying to trick you here, right? So on the user, there's a field called default team. Now, when you're creating the team, when you're creating the user, that field is not there. Okay. It's only after you click save, then it assigns it to the two teams because you have to have a real user. And the only ways you can have a real user is to click save, right? And once they're saved, then they're added to the global team and their private team. So it's a universal team. If you need a record that is everybody but 4 people, then duplicate the global team and then take out the 4 people. Okay. Don't rename or remove people from the global team. All right. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. Okay, they're all the records that are assigned to this group, everybody can see it. Now, your organization may say, you know what, I don't want to mess with all these other teams. I want everybody to see everything. That's great. And that's what we do. Everybody sees everything. But you may want to create some additional teams, like I said, for an example, if you just want certain people to see certain additional things like reports. I want to only see this particular team to see this report because we're going to use this in our staff meeting on Thursdays. Okay, so that's the global team. Standard teams. So these are created by the administrator in team management. It uses or grants access to basically the organizational structure. And the structure is going to be based on the report to field in a user. So if a person has 3 levels up in their hierarchy, if you add that person's user to a team, everybody above them will also be added to that team. We'll talk about what that looks like when I create a team here in a minute. And it commonly groups things by department, like sales, support, marketing, whatever your groups are, implementation, or geographical region. Sales usually is divided into different groups and sometimes by a specific duty that somebody's doing. Like they are doing these tasks, and I want everybody that are doing these types of tasks to have this kind of team because we're going to add these to these type of records, right? So it can be grouped in many different ways. I'm giving you best practices, but I mean, you can do it the way you want to do it. I mean, we're not going to go in and go, now listen, your teams are all messed up. We're going to have to fix them all. You do it the way you want to do it. Makes sense to you. We're just giving you the best practices, okay? So, private team. So, private teams are that user and above them in the chain of command. And as soon as you save the user, a team is going to be created. So let's say, for example, here's an example of this. So you create a team for Jane Smith. First and last name's Jane Smith. Her username may be J Smith. It could be however you put it. It could be Jane J Smith, however you set up your users. And that name, Jane Smith private team, is going to be created and added to the list of all the teams that are there. You're going to see a bunch of teams when you go into teams that have just people's names. That's their private team. Okay. And their boss are also going to be in that team. Let's say down the line, you've been using SugarU for a while and you need to delete a user. And yes, you can delete users. It will not, it will not automatically delete their private team. You have to manually go in and update that team. Okay. Here's another one, which was something I actually learned by creating this. To prevent any auto updates. So if you have any kind of integration within the system that would update a team in the system, a private team, you can prevent that by going to the admin and the system settings, and there is an option at the very bottom of the system setting page that says prevent private team names from inheriting their users' name fields. Okay, if you don't want that functionality to do that particular task, you can check mark the box and it will prevent it from doing that. Also, this little note has to do with private teams, deleting private teams. First, delete the user, then you can delete the private team. Don't go into the team first and try to delete it. It won't let you because there's an active user um, that it's for, right? It's for Jane Smith, then Jane Smith is still an active user. You have to do the delete the user first and then the team second, okay? Not that you'll be doing that a whole lot, but just FYI, um, now you know. Okay, so let's talk about creating, deleting, removing, and repairing teams. So teams, two methods of creating a team, all right? Most of the time people just go into the menu where teams are on the left side, create team, bam, you can create the team. Or um, here's another one that I think is a good idea. I think as a best practice, people don't use it, is duplicate. So when I'm creating teams, I've got my list of all the teams I want to create, right? I don't just sit down and go, oh, I have no idea what team I'm going to do. I'm just going to randomly start assigning people, right? You got to plan somehow of for my implementation. These are the teams I want to create. I would create the most complicated one first. And I know that's not super intuitive when you're talking about learning to do something, but do the most complicated one, right? It's going to take you the most time to do. And then let me say not complicated. Let's say most restrictive. That's a better way of saying it. Okay. Then the next one that's one less restrictive, copy the one that you just did and then make it less restrictive. And then the next one less and less and less. Okay. It will save you a lot of time when you have to fill all those fields in. Because what I'm going to show you here, oh, sorry, let me say that again. Oh, I'm talking about a role. Excuse me. Okay, let me say that again. So duplicating a team will save you time in that I like to pick the team that's going to have the most people in it. And then when the next team that's underneath it, if it has less people, then all I have to do is remove a couple of folks and their bosses will disappear because they're related to that particular person, unless there's somebody else that they are the superior to. So I would create the most um, team that has the most people in it first, and then the next, et cetera, like that, and then remove. I just duplicate, take some out, duplicate again, take some out until you have all the teams that you need. If that doesn't work for you, you want to create one all of a manual, go for it. You can do that. Admins are going to create, let's say there's a team that's already created. And people are having access issues like, I need to see this, but I can't see it. And admin is the one that's going to be able to add users to particular teams or create teams for new groups that come up. If you have Sugar Identity, meaning you are on the cloud with us, you can not only create the team and then go into Sugar Identity and then check any kind of user preference changes that you may make. And this is true also for roles. So you can log in as that person using the impersonation and see, did I create that role right? Did I create this team right? Do they have access to the right records? Do they have access to the right operations? So that's just a good idea no matter what, okay? Deleting a team. So you can delete one team or multiple teams at the same time. Deleting team user relationships only, not user records. So you're just, if a team exists and you delete a team, it doesn't do anything to the user except not give them access to the records that that team was associated to, but it doesn't affect the user itself, meaning it doesn't delete the user too. And we already talked about the last one, so I'm not going to discuss it again. Okay, removing users from teams. So when a user is added to a team, their superiors come with them, right? If you remove that user, that same user that let's say has two of their bosses above them, right? If you remove that person, their two superiors will also go, like I said, unless they are, the superiors of someone else on that team. One team can have many users. One record can have many users. So it depends on what access you want to give to each user. If you want to see what teams a particular user is in, you go to that user's management page, whether you're on Sugar Identity or not, doesn't matter. Go into Sugar Management on the admin page and pull up that user, and there's a sub panel below that user record, just like if it was an account record, it's at the sub panels below that has teams, and it will tell you what teams they're associated with. Okay. So if I remove a link, a record that I manually added, a user I manually added, if I remove that user, which I can, if I manually add it, I can manually remove it. Not only will that affect just that user, but any of the associated report to members, which we'll talk about. You'll get to see that in just a second. All right. Sometimes things have been removed and added and changed, and you've done an update this past week, et cetera, et cetera. Things are going to happen. You found that you need to do a fix before you contact support or your partner. You just want to go in there and try to do, instead of like a quick repair rebuild, there's actually two options under the repair menu that you can select, whether it's upgrade a team or repair a team, that are options for you to repair. Okay, you still can do the quick repair rebuild if you want to do all of them. It will cover that too. But if you specifically have issues with teams, there is a repair in the system. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go in and create a team from records that are already, users that are already in the system. I want to briefly talk about a couple of their teams before we get into others, but I want to show you them in the system. Okay. So give me a second. Okay. So I'm just going to go to team management here. And out of the box teams, there won't be any except for out of the box, there's one, and that's the global team. And when you get Sugar, very first one, you already have a user in the system. It's called an admin, and that user's in the global team. Okay. They don't have a private team because they're an admin. Teams don't matter to them. They can see all records. So global is the only team that's going to be there, and it's going to be automatically updated all the time. Okay. So let me show you all the teams that we have. So we have a lot of people's names here, and you can see that they have private team and then their username out here to the right. Now there's also some other teams that I want to create in the system. So I want to first verify that they don't exist already. So I want to do just like a blanket sales team. Okay, so I'm just going to type sales, click search. And yes, this is a backwards compatible module, meaning it doesn't look like all the others. It doesn't look as slick. We haven't gotten to updating the teams, the view of it yet, the UI. So there isn't one found. So I can click create here or create teams. So this is the team I'm in. Create teams. Either one does the same thing. Neither one of them is going to carry over that name. Okay. So you have to type it again. So I'm just going to type sales. Okay. And this is for all users in the sales department. Now, no one else is going to see this description except for other admins. Okay. Ooh. Okay. I have a question in chat, and it is, can we create the team in dev and copy over to production without having to do it again? uh, so before package builder and developer was accessed, I would say there's no way you have to redo it again. I don't believe that it does copies. I think it just does the changes that you do in Studio. So I don't think there is a way that you can create something in dev and just say copy over. But I'm not going to just say that right out. So let me verify that, and I will send the answer when I send the email after the class for everybody that attended. Okay, good question. Okay, so I'm going to click save. So a team's created. Now nobody's in it yet, but it has been created, and it could be linked to records right at this moment, but that's not good practice. So I'm not going to tell anybody that it's created yet until I'm finished adding everybody. So this is the record up here at the top. this section that just says team name and description, and this is the sub panel. So in order to add users to it, I have to click select. Now this is a pop-up, one of the few that's left in Sugar. I am going to only add 4 people. Okay, that's it, 4 people, but I want to show you what it looks like because it's not going to just have 4 people in it. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to say active in my search, and job title, I want all of the sales reps, whether they're sales rep 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. I'm just going to type sales rep, okay, and click search. And 4 folks show up: Melissa, Sally, Max, and Chris. Great. So I'm going to select all of them and click select. And so I added 4, but there are a total of 7 that have been added. Okay, so let's talk about the others. So Jim is at the very top of the hierarchy. He's the sales VP. Okay, and Chris and Melissa work for Will, their sales manager, and Sarah's the other sales manager, and her subordinates are Sally and Max. Okay, so and if you'll notice, the ones that say member report to, I did not manually add them, so I cannot, over here in the far right, there's no unlink. I cannot manually delete them or remove them, okay? The only way to remove someone that says membership type or membership is member report to is to take their, I'm not saying doing this, but this is the only way to do it, is to take their name off of the report to field on their user page, okay? Same thing for the last 2. They also don't have unlinks because they are both member report tos, okay? So if I went into, I'm going to click on Will here. So here's Will's user page up here at the top. So here's his user. I'm going to scroll down. Here are all the teams that he's in, okay? He's in his private team. He's in Chris's private team because he's Chris's boss. He's in Melissa's private team, and he's in the East sales team. And now in this new sales team I have created, which is all the teams, whether it's East, West, North, South, whatever, that's going to be everybody that has the title sales is going to be in the sales team. Now, there's another best practice, people. When you're creating a team and you are adding users to that team, you're going to realize why it is so important to fill in the department, the title, things like that, because that's how you can filter out real quickly to create teams, especially if you're creating teams by job title or creating them by department. Those will help you out. If you're doing it by region, you can put the states in, etc. Okay, so if I, like, for example, I'm going to put in customer service, and someone has gone in and put customer service correctly in all of the customer service, oh, also active, excuse me, not blank, all active customer service department users. I think I may have misspelled that. It was service, right? Not support. Yeah. So let me see how many there are. Oh, I just do this, sorry. 33 of them. Now, if I put sales in here, they didn't do these very well. So you're going to tell real quickly, it only has my 7 people. There's a whole lot more in there than just the ones that I've, placed in this particular setup. Okay. So it helps with all that the more that you put in. If you did not fill in a report to on the users and you go, oh man, I forgot to do that, write yourself a little note that you need to go back to all those users and put in who they report to. If you're going to be using forecasting, if you're going to be using teams, and there's a few other areas, you need that report to field. Okay, yeah, that is easier. So another way, let's say that I go into a user, I'm just pick Sarah, for example. I can go down to teams, and on this sub panel, I can create a new team, or I can link her to an existing team. Okay. I don't know if all you knew that was there also. You don't have to go find the team, then put her in that team. You just, if you're already on the user page, that may be an easier step for you to do also. Okay. All right. So let's jump into roles next. Okay, so teams are what people can see. If I assigned a record to the sales team, those 7 people Even the member report to people will be able to see it. Oh, let me say one other thing about this. Okay. So for this team sales, and this is just an FYI, for those of you that know or have done anything with Sugar BPM yet, if you haven't, we have a class, FYI. If you're doing something like, I want these tasks to be assigned round robin to the sales team. Okay, so it goes down the list and it's going to go, okay, I'm going to assign the first one to Chris. Next time it triggers, it's going to give it to Max. It's going to skip all the member report tos. Okay, so if you want Jim in that round robin, you need to manually add him to this role. And when it gets down to Will and Sarah, it will skip them also because they're member report twos. Okay, I wanted to mention that real quick. Okay, so now let's talk about roles. So roles are in the system, they're called role management, but you're also going to see in documentation access control. Okay, access control has to do with roles or permissions. What permission are we giving them the ability to do? Okay, so out of the box, they can do a lot of the operation. They can do all the operations, but you can give them in a role more access. Okay, so in our demo in a little bit, I'm going to show you what that looks like. So roles are, just as a refresher, define what the folks in that particular role, not everybody, just the users in that role, what access they have to modules, like can they see the module? Yes or no? What if they can see it, do they have more access or just normal access like a regular user? And what operations they can do. That is encompassing all in what a role is. It forces restrictions in the module itself, the entire module, but also all the way down granular to each field that's in a module. I can say that the industry field in accounts is read-only for all the users in this role. Well, bam, they will not be able to change that field. Okay, as soon as you add them and the next time they log on, they will have that restriction. Okay. So it's all the way down to the field level. And you can use both permission types for more robust. So you're going to not only just do the module, right? There's a place on that role that you also can do the field restrictions to. Okay. Okay. Assigning users to the role. First thing I want to say about this is when you fill out a role at the very top, fill it all in, all looks great, right? And you go down to add a user to that role, then they will be, it will wipe out all the stuff you did at the top unless you click save first. There is no warning. Okay, you will do it at least once and it will bother you and you will remember not to do it again. It has happened to me. I get too excited about going and adding my people to this role and I forget that he didn't click save first. Okay, so let's talk about other situations. Admins can create and assign roles to regular users. And I'm going to skip down to this one real quick. Admins cannot be assigned to a role. Okay, they're super users. So they don't need to be restricted from doing anything. Otherwise, why would you restrict someone that needs to be able to do something that no one else is going to be able to do if you could? So they can't do it anyway. Users can belong to multiple roles. Sugar applies the most restrictive aspect of each role. So well, I'll explain that, how I think about it when we actually look at a role. It probably will help. So when we talk about access control, there's actually 3 levels. There's module level. This is everything in that module. Can I edit it? Can I delete it? Can I do mass update, etc. in that at the module level? Then there's this one that slipped in there, and it is record level permission. Team-based permissions is a combination of roles and teams. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, but it is that mid-level, I'm going to track record level permissions. And then there are the field level permissions, which are also in a role. Okay. So some modules handle roles a little differently. Okay. And you may have experienced this already. So the forecast module, asset access control, so how you have set up your roles for a particular groups in the system that are going to access forecasting, controls only at that module level. So it ignores module and field level access controls of related modules. So what that means is when you're looking at forecasting, because it's a completely different module than opportunities, opportunities data shows and forecast is editable regardless of the user access that they may have on a role module. So let's say the role says you can't edit this opportunity. Well, if they're looking at an opportunity through forecasting, they can. Okay? That's just the way it works. All right. Reports. If a user, if a user's role restricts their access to a field, so they cannot change the industry field, okay? Or let's even say this, they can't even see the industry field in accounts. We really restricted it. That is used in a report, the user will not be allowed to see any information on that report, okay? So it takes it a little step further rather than forecast. It kind of gives them more information than they probably should have. Reports is going to restrict them. So those two modules work a little bit differently than every other module in the system. So I wanted to point that out to you. So let's put some of this together, right? So access means whatever the team membership is, so what they can see in the system, and the role, the actions they can take, that's their access. So sometimes when folks come to you, they may say, I cannot see something, or I'm seeing things probably I shouldn't be seeing. That is a combination, could be a combination of both a team and a role, depending on what you may be looking at. So if you're talking about sales reps and sales managers, you may have a sales rep on the East Coast team. They have a very limited role. A sales manager, which is East and West Coast teams, they have full access. There are different teams, role combinations, and different access levels. So a sales manager is going to be a part of the same team that their employees are, right? So they will be able to see everything their employees do, but they may also be able to access other things that their employees cannot see, right? So that's two, they may be on the same team, but that doesn't mean that they'll be restricted with it, just like their subordinates are, okay? All right, here's a couple of pitfalls. This is the more access or less access. So someone may come to you and say, I'm supposed to be able to see this, or someone sent me this link and I can't see the record. It's giving me a message to say you may not have access. So it may be true. They may not be able or shouldn't be able to see that record. But if they are, what do you do? Right? What should they be able to see? Now, if they're just talking about seeing the record or not seeing the record, you're talking about a team. If they're talking about, I can't see it in the record view, but I can see it in the list view, you're talking about a role. Okay, so you're going to have to ask a few more questions because sometimes they're not going to talk in admin speak, right? You're going to have to interpret that to say, oh, okay, tell me what exactly you cannot see. You can't see it anywhere. You can't see it in a sub panel. You can't see whatever, right? So it may just be teams. It may be teams and roles, depending on what they say. Because of overlapping roles, Sugar applies the that's not right. I don't know where that word came from. Not least, most restrictive rule. So whatever is the most restrictive, that's the one it's going to hold on to. Okay, so that if there is a restriction, that's the one that it's going to apply to that particular user. Okay. Okay, scaling. So when you first start putting users in as a new implementation, right? Um, you you need to plan for growth, right? You need to decide on these teams and roles. I need to define what my groups, whatever those groups may be, am I going to group them by function, um, or am I going to do it by their department or by their job duty, whatever it may be? Okay. Usually you define what roles are going to be done usually by what they're going to do in the system because that's the operations you're going to be changing in the role, and the team is based usually on region or department. So you kind of need to map out or plan for, hey, we may have additional teams and regions and role types in the future based on what we have in here. And can we use certain roles as templates to create other ones? Now, is it called templates in the system? No, but you can duplicate them and then reallocate them to be different roles that you change some of the options on. Okay. Document everything. You may not be the only admin. Number one, you may not be the only admin in the life of your journey with sugar. So it's always good to keep track of what roles users are in, what teams did I add them to. It's great for if you need to do an audit or if someone comes up and says, I'm having this issue, you can easily find that information. Sometimes when you're looking at an access page on a user, it combines all of those roles into one view. It does not tell you which role is each of those values are coming from. So that's why it's a good idea to document that also. Review regularly. I recommend quarterly. That doesn't mean it has to be quarterly. You can do it whenever you want, but they need to be reviewed because sometimes people change job levels. They change jobs completely. Their tasks, they may be taking on more operations than they did in the past, etc. And that is very true when we get to team-based permissions too. Okay, so it helps prevent some of those gaps or over permissions. Okay, so in this little chart here, we have Jim at the very top. Okay, and I did it by job color. Each color is a different job level. So it's Jim, and then he has two managers, Will and Sarah. Okay, that's another level. And then we have sales reps 1. So both Sarah and Jim have a sales rep 1, and both Sarah and Jim have a sales rep 2, Sally and Melissa. Okay, so in the system, I have already created a role. So let me go back to the admin here for a sales manager. And it's pretty, actually, I've given them more access and taken anything away. So I'll define it in a second. So Sarah and Sarah and Will are the only two that are in the sales managers because they were the only two listed. And the only thing that I did is I actually copied one of the roles or duplicated, excuse me, one of the roles that was already in the system. And I just changed these fields. Instead of giving them admin and developer rights, I gave them admin. So admin means that if Jim, sorry, I keep saying Jim, Bill or Sarah wants to see accounts that are in teams that they're not associated with, like Jim wants to see Sarah's accounts, he can do that if he has admin, meaning that he overrides. Admins can see all records no matter what the team is. That's what admin means. If you throw in developer, that means that you're giving this group access to Studio in the Developer Tools panel to make changes to that module. Okay, be very, very careful who you give that to. Okay, this no one too many cooks in the kitchen type thing. So just be careful about who you give developer to. Admin is fine. Just if you want leads or directors or managers to see all records in a module, sure, just give them admin privileges for those. Okay. The other role that I created was sales rep 1s. Okay. And these are just for Chris and Max. Now this one I made a whole lot more restrictive. So I did not change the access type. Like they can still see the module and they have normal access, meaning if they're on a team, they can see the record. If they're on a team, they can't see the record. But I don't want them to delete, export, import, or do mass update. So I made all those none. So those two people in this role will not be able to do any of those things, but they can edit the record only if they own it. Okay, only if they own it. So what does this mean? So I'm going to log in as Will. So down here. Okay. So Will, sorry about that. Will can see all the records no matter what the team is. So if he goes in one of those modules was accounts. So no matter what record, what team it may be assigned to, he can see it, even if it's not in his region. Okay, so he's East manager, but there are some like Houston, for example, is not on the East, but he can still be able to see it because he is um, has an admin privilege for accounts. Okay, now if I log in as Chris, one of his employees, let me log out. That is not the same. He is in a different role, so he will have different access. Okay. And like I said before, if you ever want to do what I'm doing now, log in and see the other people, you can do this through Sugar Identity. Okay. Sorry, those two things keep popping up. I'm going to go into accounts and there will be records that he will not be able to see. So I'm going to take off his my accounts. Okay. There will be records in this list that he just doesn't have access because he can't, it's not his record. So if he pulls up a record that he does not own, so this is a record owned by Will, notice there's no edit up here. He cannot edit this record because he does not own it. Okay. Now, while we're talking about permissions, I'm going to just briefly talk about role-based views. So if I go in and list, so here's a list one, for example, let me pick a record that he actually owns. So I'm going to pick his accounts. This is Chris. He can go in and on this list, he's got two choices. Now, if I look at the same list for his boss, Will, he's going to have four choices. Okay. If he goes to opportunities, he will have a different layout of an opportunity. So this is what his layout looks like. It's real precise, right? It has the likely amount, the sales stage, and then the best case and worst case are down here at the bottom. But if I log in as his boss, he will have a different view. You can give different views to different individuals based on their role. So, and how you do that is Jen can go into Studio on the admin page and create role-based views, just like she can create a view based on a drop-down field. She can do the same thing for, let me refresh my page here. She can do the same thing for roles. I want to give the sales manager be able to see this kind of layout. I want to see my sales rep see a different kind of layout. Okay. Oh, it's not coordinating with me. Let me do this again. If it doesn't, that's okay. There we go. Not working. That's okay. Let's go back to our slides because I want to talk about. So in Studio, for example, this one's in accounts. You can create a layout based on a role, and the ones that have asterisks beside them, those are the ones that have already been chosen. Okay. You can also do it by list view. So put in the list first of every single opportunity. I mean, every single value and that possibly someone could select, and then start narrowing down that list for particular roles. Maybe this role only sees 5 records, this role sees 2 records. Okay, that's role-based views. Now, team-based permissions, we don't have time to go through all this, but get your phone out for me real quick. This article is excellent. It goes through and defines team-based permissions for you. Okay, it gives you a scenario, then gives you the answer of what it would look like, then it gives you another scenario and say this is what that access would be. So it's a combination of teams and roles. An example of when you want to use it is, let's say you have a group of people that are trying to close a deal on an account and opportunity, and you want that group of people to have more access than usual. You can give that through team-based permissions. Okay, all right. Keep your phone up. Okay. Since we don't have time for a lot of questions, this is what I'm going to say about that, about the questions. I'll talk about it in a second. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm turning on the wrong page. This one right here. One more. This one. Screenshot this or use your phone. And this is the article. Okay. And it's underneath Studio and Module Builder section for some reason. I don't know why role-based views. I guess because Studio is the role-based view thing. I think I had the wrong screenshot there. But the QR code should go to team-based permissions. Okay. So a couple of questions or scenarios that I've heard people say are, I assigned a user to a role, but the user still can't see records. Okay, well, that's probably because it doesn't have to do with roles. It has to do with teams. They're not on a team that can see it. My manager can't view their team's opportunities, then that's probably because they're not in the report to field on their user page. Okay, because it's not required. You don't have to have that to save a user. Why can one user delete a record and another one can't? It's probably because they're in two different roles, right? They may have different duties, a job task they need to do. If they should be the same, then that's something that just needs to be corrected in roles. Either they need to be in the same role, or maybe they need to be in separate roles but have the same ability for deleting records in that particular module. Okay. Now, this next one, I know this is a lot of these other ones, but you can also screenshot that and take a picture of it later. I mean, or scan it later, either one. So team management admin guide, role management admin guide, and then there is a course for Sugar Admin Fundamentals where we talk about users, teams, and roles and put it all together, and you create them in class. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to give you, let me take this little arrow off. I'm going to give you the slides link after class, so you'll have access to it. Don't freak out that you didn't get this out in time. But the next section, or the next webinar we're going to have, is about turbocharging manufacturing success with Sugar CRM. So this is um, uh, it says it's specifically for manufacturing, but it doesn't mean that people from other industries won't benefit from it. Okay. So it's about how leaders can streamline their sales team management, improve visibility, drive results, and in a high stakes sales environment. So you can subscribe to the Sugar Club page where all of the SugarU live webinars are located, and you'll get updated every time that's changed too. Okay, so here's how we can continue the conversation. Go to Sugar Club, get involved, ask questions. If there's something you don't understand, even if it's from this webinar, ask a question in Sugar Club and we will get you, someone in our organization will get you an answer. I don't want you to just be left out there not being able to ask, but Sugar Club is going to be your way to do that. I have one outstanding question I'm going to get back to you after class. After the recording's done, I will send the outstanding question along with the slides and the answers to the handout also. Okay. All right. You'll have a great rest of your day. Next month, please sign up to attend the next month's webinar in August. Okay. You'll have a great one. Bye-bye.